Welcome back to Tied Down TV.
Good start.
Welcome back to Tied Down TV, the punk rock opinion show with me, Danny.
And Geoff.
Just like to thank everyone before we start for subscribing, as this week we went past 50 subscribers. So I'd like to give out a thanks to everyone for doing that. Obviously, we're just a little DIY show, so anyone who showed interest, I'd like to thank you for doing that.
It means a lot.
Today we're talking about our top 5 record labels in punk and hardcore. So without further ado, Geoff, what have you got for us?
So my first pick, we'll go in Epitaph Records, and I know, don't worry, I know what you're going to say, but for
What
me,
are you going to say?
People don't like Epitaph, do they? Because, you know, it broke punk into the mainstream, but that's why I got into punk in the first place, really. Properly got into punk. I saw a video of Rancid, and from then on, that band, like, they changed everything for me, to be fair. But that later, and then I discovered the label and all the bands on it, like No Effects, Bad Religion, Pennywise. It was amazing, and obviously it broke in 1994. You had all the bands like I just mentioned, like Rancid, No Effects, The Offspring was the big one on that. Like, it was like the biggest selling independent album of all time until Adele came along, I think. And it just, you know, that's because of them. I got into so many bands, and from those bands got into, you know, more underground stuff, if you like. But they had like the Punkorama compilations, which were cheap, like, you know, 4 or 5 quid.
Seemed to be everywhere at one point, didn't they?
They were literally like, there was about 9 or 10 of them, but yeah, they were fucking everywhere because they were so cheap as well. People would buy them 5 at a go, whatever.
You always see them in people's cars, wouldn't you?
I probably had them in my car when I first started driving, but as I say, like Epitaph, the Fat Records, and the sub label of Epitaph, Hellcat as well. Like, I had to give them the boot comps, which was also cheap, and you know, they had stuff like I mean, even maybe not their best stuff, but like Agnostic Front were on them and other bands like that. But it was a huge label for me. Might not sort of follow it. There's 1 or 2 bands who are on the label nowadays who I still have a passing interest in, but other than that, nothing really. However, I would never discount and say, you know, it wasn't a huge label, especially for me. But in general, I think it, you know, it exposed a lot of people to punk music and punk culture, really.
Yeah. So I mean, just to say there though, these what we've picked here, it's what have affected us the most, I'd say, in our lives. That's the might not necessarily be what they put out, you know, exactly. It's just how, it's just what they, you know, how they've affected us. Yeah. So I'm going to go for my first pick. I'm going to go Revelation Records. Nice. So I think I've mentioned it before in a video earlier on that around 14, 15, 16, I wasn't the most confident kid. You know, like I say, I was one of those. I was a head down merchant. You know, I'd walk around my head down a lot. Obviously discovering hardcore gave me confidence, and obviously discovering straight edge with bands like Minor Threat, but it was discovering Revelation Records and discovering bands like Youth Today, Bold, Judge, Side by Side, Inside Out, all them type of bands, and discovering the youth crew mentality and aesthetic that suddenly made me realise, wow, it's actually cool to not drink. I don't have to feel weird for it anymore.
Not at all.
Look at these guys, you know what I mean? They look strong, they look athletic, and I think at that time of my life, when I was that age, and like I say, I was scared of my own shadow, it was discovering probably Revelation Records that really made me start putting my you know, my shoulders up, my head up, my shoulders out, and all that. And it was just that whole thing suddenly gave me so much confidence. Do you know what I mean? And for that reason, I've got to go Revelation as my first choice.
That's a fucking great label, to be fair. I wouldn't disagree with that at all. Some great 7-inches came out on that as well, didn't they? Obviously,
between like 85 and 88, just gold.
So much good stuff, wasn't it? Yeah. So my second choice, I'm going SST, another fucking huge label in American hardcore. Started by Greg Ginn of Black Flag fame, but prior to that, this was a business that used to fix radios, I believe.
All right.
Yeah. But you know, when he was in Black Flag, he wanted to put out what they'd recorded. So they had the 7-inch Nervous Breakdown. It's class. It's one of the best 7-inches that's ever fucking existed for me. That was the first release on that label. And, you know, in those early years, you had the Minutemen, all their discographies on there, all the Black Flag's discographies on there as well. You had stuff like Husker Du with Metal Circus, and Zen Arcade came out on that. Eye Against Eye by Bad Brains came out on that. Stuff by Sonic Youth, stuff by the Meat Puppets. It's I mean, like I say, some of the output in the 90s, I've not sort of really listened to it, don't know what it's about. It's just that chunk of bands, I still listen to all of them now, you know what I mean? Even like the Descendants as well, who released it, I listen to them all the time, but I listen to Husker Du, Minutemen, Black Flag, Meat Puppets, Sonic Youth, big fan of all of those bands. huge label again. Like I say, it was important at that time. It was important to me when I discovered a lot of those bands as well. Yeah. Because a lot of those bands who I mentioned, like say Minutemen, I mean, they came out of the hardcore scene, but it's not. Doesn't sound like hardcore. It's fast. Sounds speed wise, it is. But it's it's not the same mentality, the same attitude, but it just kind of like maybe broadened my musical horizons a little bit, so to speak, and stuff like Meat Puppets, Sonic Youth. Like anyway, I could go on and on, but it's a fucking class label. Like I say, any of that sort of first run from like 78, 79, I think till about 85, 86, there's some absolute bangers on there, man. It's a class label. Well worth it.
I'm gonna go Blackout Records out of New York for my next pick. I'm not going to talk too much about the band because we've got a New York hardcore episode coming up soon. I mean, what are we talking about here? We're talking Sheer Terror, Breakdown, Outburst, Eye for an Eye, Killing Time, Rest in Pieces. Do you know what I mean? That's all I have to say. This label's was incredible for me growing. You know what I mean? These bands represented a more of a street sound, I guess, that was coming into hardcore.
Yeah.
And these, I'd say it was this label and these group of bands that went on to eventually inspire bands like Terror and Hatebreed and the more mainstream hardcore sounding bands. Yeah. But this particular label and this era of bands, it's something that stuck from me from around the age of 18, and it's been a constant all the way through. You know what I mean? Yeah. I still love all these bands and all these records, and I still listen to them regularly. Yeah. So it's pretty easy for me to put in my list. Blackout Records.
Yeah, it's fucking great. There's some good stuff on that, man. Sheer Terror, especially for me, like they're fucking class. Look, my third pick, Havoc.
Oh, amazing. Yeah.
You want to get into some good crust, good quality crust and D-beat, go and check out almost anything that came out on there. Even in like what stuff they put out as like the first pressings, originals, stuff like Skit Systems, back catalogue, Code 13 are on there, aren't they? Destroyer on there, class stuff. They put repressed by like Discharge, Broken Bones, loads of the Swedish stuff, Dysphere. I think they've done some of the Wolfpack. It's class, and I love a lot of that Swedish D-beat sound. Like I love that stuff, and they've put out a lot of that. Like I say, Mob 47 as well is another one. Yeah. It's again it's hard to really kind of say too much other than just give you a list of all the fucking great bands that
It is a great label. I remember me and a group of my mates for a while, we were trying to get all the 7-inches on him. Havoc. It caused a few little bits of friction within our group.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
but like it was like one of those labels we were desperately all trying to get the 7 inches.
It's fucking iconic,
especially the Code 13 ones. Do you know what I mean?
Hard on they're good. But like I say, some of the stuff that was repressed, I've been after for years and I've not been able to get it because it's out of print. Some like the Dysphere early records and that Mob 47 7-inch that came out on it not too long ago. It's a class label, like I say, crust D-beat. If that's what you're into or you want to get into it, that's a
very good label.
Very good place to start as well.
Yeah. I'm going to go Ruction for my next pick.
Okay, I suspected you probably would.
Yeah. Done so much for UK hardcore. I think they deserve all the respect they get. Started around 98, I believe. Obviously led by Knuckle Dust, which is like the leadership band, if that's a word.
The flagship band.
Yeah, the flagship band,
but also, didn't he Pierre had a hand in starting it?
Yeah, I don't know if he is the main man there, to be honest, but basically, not just their back catalogue, they give, all my best memories growing up as a young man in the hardcore scene were probably through either being an attendee of a Ruction affiliated show or playing one myself.
Yeah.
Or, got invited to play in London a few times, to play Ruction shows, always treated really nicely.
That's cool.
A lot of people I know were also invited down to play. Yeah. Everyone always says the same, always treated really nice. The Ruction group of people, do you know what I mean? Yeah. Obviously, the back catalogue's great. They kind of invented the London sound. If you want to hear the London sound, I'd say a perfect example of it, I'd listen to the band 9 Bar. But yeah, can't say enough about Ruction. Brilliant label, brilliant logo. I always loved their logo as well. Yeah. But yeah, done so much for UK hardcore, and I think I just had to they had to be in my pick, even if I don't necessarily listen to their back catalogue as much as I once did.
Like I said, with that Epitaph, the same thing. I mean, I knew you at that time. I know how big that label was. So you're not surprised whatsoever that you picked that. Yeah, nice pick. My next pick, Crash Records. I've got massive fan of Crash. Probably mentioned it a couple of times already because I fucking love them. But they were a big band for me. Even like sort of late teens, early 20s, but they got a lot bigger for me into my late 20s, and I got really deep into like the anarcho sort of stuff. And if you go to Crash Records, some of the best, like Anarcho 7-inches, for instance, come out on that label. Loads of the whole Crass discography came out on that label as well. But stuff by, you got the New Smell by Flux Pink Indians, the Farce 7-inch by Rudimentary Peni. You've got the War Subvert and Can't You Karma 7-inch by Zounds.
Didn't Chumbawamba release something there?
I think Chumbawamba, they do it on the Bullshit Detector comp for sure. They might have actually put some of a couple of early releases out. I know that they were very close. Like Steve Ignorant and a lot of those guys were quite mates. Like, but I mean, it's just fucking great. Like I say, the Bullshit Detector comps as well. Like, and I know I don't even think I was born at the time. A lot of them came out in the early 80s, but they were selling. They were dirt cheap, and you got loads of songs on them. Early Napalm Death recording is on one of them. Early Chumbawamba. You know, it's very important. Like I say, it's a massive label for me, especially in sort of like from the last 8 to 10 years ago. I still listen to a lot of that stuff now, like all the time. A lot of the anarcho punk, like that's kind of where I go now if I really want to listen to some punk. So Crass Records, like I say, fairly small sort of output, but I like the 7-inches alone. Like I say, MDC as well, Multi Death Corporations is fucking on there. That's a class record. But in general, just go and check it out, especially if you want some good anarcho punk from that sort of early 80s in the UK.
I'm going to go very close to home now. Bit of a sentimental pick, but I also think it deserves mention for how important it was at the time. I'm going to go Days of Fury Records out of Wallasey. If you think of UK hardcore in the early 90s, you think of bands like Freebase, Voorhees, Imbalance, Area Effect above all. But I think the two bands that were really leading the charge at that time for a lot of for that group was Stamping Ground and Knuckle Dust. And those two bands released their first work on Days of Fury Records. Obviously, I'm proud that it was from our Wallasey, and Stamping Ground released the Dawn of Night 7-inch on there. Knuckle Dust released the London Hardcore mini CD on there, but not just that as well. Crack Cop Skulls was released on there, their first 7-inch, which is our soundtrack on the beginning of our videos. The Underclass Hard to Swallow split was on there. Public Disturbance, Victim Circumstance, which was obviously, people probably know, members went on to form the ill-fated Lost Prophets, but we're not going to go into that. This is it was a pretty important label for its time. And,
absolutely, like you say, it's even just like Stamping Ground and Knuckle Dust alone.
Exactly.
Hardcore, they were huge, weren't they, at that time?
So
and also the title song to our channel, Cop Skulls, is on this label as well.
Exactly. So that's going to be one of my picks. Days of Fury.
It's a good choice, man. Very good choice. So my last pick, I haven't put these in any order except for this one. Let's do this last because this is number one for me, without question. Discord Records, one of the most important record labels in punk and hardcore in general. I think. The history,
I agree.
Like that label. I mean, for me, it still puts out quality stuff now. But if you go and listen to like what they were putting out from like 1980 to about 85, 86, it's flawless. Everything's fucking great. It started by Ian Mackay and Jeff Nelson, who at the time were in Teen Idols. They recorded the 7-inch. They split up, wanted to put the 7-inch out just to document it. Went and learned how to, just did it on their own. Decided ringing up, how do you get a record pressed? All right, how do you make a sleeve? So they took one of their own single 7-inches they had, took it apart, drew around it on a piece of paper, and cut it out. And I think a lot of their first run, they did that all by fucking hand. Like, and if you don't know, Ian Mackay, Jeff Nelson's next band, Minor Threat. So, I mean, need you say any more? But if you think about it, like I say, like Teen Idols, then it was SOA. I think it was the second release on there, which is Henry Rollins. Huge name. Obviously, you all know who he is. And then you've got Government Issue, like I say, Minor Threat. Right up to like, you've got Marginal Man, Scream, The Void, Faith Split, the Faith Subject to Change EP. Fucking Revolution Summer, man. And you talk about Dag Nasty, Embrace, Rites of Spring, Grey Matter, all that so-called like first wave of emo, basically. And it's great. You have the Flex Your Head comp's cool as well. You ever get hold of that? And that's got a load of those early stuff on it. I could gush about this label so much, so long. Even now, for me, they put out great stuff. And let's not forget, the biggest band who ever came off that label, the mighty Fugazi, went out, fucking nearly, they almost broke into the mainstream, if not did a little bit. But they were getting offered, £1 million deals, and they turned it down. Still for 40 years as a label, it's running on the same code of ethics and morals that they always have. They still exist. So many times he's been told that Ian Mackay that it's a bad business model to the way he runs Discord. You've been existing for 40 years. It must be pretty good what he's doing, mustn't it? Yeah. But in general, like I say, there's not much like I've heard ever. Even like, I mean, I like stuff maybe you probably wouldn't like, but even stuff like Nations of Ulysses, I love that shit, man. Hammered Hull's recent one, Kariki recent one. I could go on and on. But just go and have a look, like I say. And if you want to listen to some of that, the early stuff, it's fucking flawless. Yeah. It's class. And I'll say no more on it.
My last pick is going to be Twotone. Started by a visionary and genius with no teeth, Jerry Dammers, out of his house in Coventry. This was started at a time of racial tension and complete, turmoil, in the country. Yeah. This label and collective of individuals, led by the legendary Specials. Yeah.
It was Jerry Dammers' band, wasn't it?
Yeah, they took the sounds of Jamaica, they took the sounds of Prince Buster, Desmond Decker, the Pioneers, Harry J. All-Stars, and they punked it up.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? And they got the country dancing. They united the races. You had black, white, and Asian dancing together. Yeah. They gave the youth hope when it didn't seem like there was any violence up and down the country, and for that small number of years, they united. They united the races, and
they did. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And like I say, this was when they gave you hope when there was none. Do you know what I mean? They gave you a voice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think it's such an important label. There was no way, and there's no way no one could tell me it's not a punk label.
Oh, it's punk as fuck.
Definitely is punk label.
Of course it's a punk label. Fucking Specials are a punk band. Whatever. When it's all said and done, they're a punk band.
Yeah. But maybe not so much an album-based label. He released a couple, but it was they're mainly a singles-based label. Yeah, and
fucking flawless.
Yeah, and a lot of their singles didn't even have covers, but they did have the recognisable sleeve with the iconic Walt Jobs go on the side with the check going along the side. Yeah, I think everyone's seen those little single sleeves. But yeah, I was lucky enough to see the Specials, unfortunately, before Terry Hall passed away, and it was one of the best shows I ever seen. I think it's a bit of a life-changing label. I think once you buy into the Twotone thing, life's never quite the same. I think for the better. Yeah. Do you know what I mean?
I mean, I wouldn't disagree. Like I said about Discord, I'll say it about Twotone as well. It is one of the most important record labels to exist at its time. What it did, especially in the UK. Yeah. And it was, they were just fucking. Yeah, like you said, they were out there facing like adversity, National Front skinheads going to the shows and everything. Yeah, took on Thatcherism head on. Yeah, they did, but nicely done. So that's our top fives, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm going to go with an honourable mention. I'm going to go Jade Tree.
I'm going to go New Age Records.
Nice, good choice. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And join us next time when we're going to be doing top 5
post-punk.
See you then.
It's what I say, it's what I do.